Yo, yo, what is up? We're back. We're back, and we finished the Path of Terraria campaign and questing and stuff like that. So I want to do an initial, like, first impressions and kind of like thoughts while they're fresh in my head. So yeah, here's this is the character right here, just 26 hours. So I could have done it in one day. The problem is a mix of IRL and honestly a lot of bugs for through progression, which of course are gonna get fixed. But without them, I would definitely have finished much sooner. But you run into them and then you're like, okay, I'll just log off for now and come back later. Um, and there were a few that were kind of annoying like that, which have already been posted about, been reported and whatnot. So they're gonna get fixed. It's just a matter of time, right? Anyway, so yeah, so this is the setup. I pretty much just completed the quest line, like for all the quests. I've completed every single quest actually, and I haven't really done much beyond that. So this was I'll just do a quick rundown on my setup, just to get it out of the way, and then we'll talk about what actually matters. Um, yeah, I'm melee technically, but yeah, and I did start out melee up until Wall of Flesh. Wall of Flesh is pretty annoying to kill on, you know, melee. Basically, it's quite difficult. Maybe it's doable on like Knight's Edge or something, but I didn't bother. I just swapped to this simulacra weapon, which I did the sprite for, and I quite like how it plays. You can spawn clones of your bow. You can do three. It's a little the timing of it. It's not the uptime on it. It's not great. But you'll always have a second one pretty much. Um, and this DPS is pretty good. I mean, obviously my gear is really good, so it's gonna look even better. But this bow is really strong. In general, just because of the how many times it hits, right? How many projectiles you're shooting out, and then of course you can scale that with arrows and whatnot and your tree and all that, and it's quite strong. I took this bow all the way up to Plantera, at which point I dropped the Venus Magnum and then just swapped to that. Killed no, what did I killed Golem, and then I dropped a Possessed Hatchet. Tried that out on Duke Fishron. I killed him, but it was quite a struggle compared to ranged. Um, Melee damage in the mid game just doesn't have great scaling options. I'll kind of talk about that later. I think it'll get better. Like once you get a bunch more points in the tree, like 80 plus points, it'll probably be fine. But mid game it's a little rough. And then I swapped back to yeah, Venus Magnum with Chlorophyte for Empress of Light, and then I swapped to Eventide for Cultist event. Yeah, or the Cultist stuff and solar pillars and whatnot, and like vortex, nebula, the pillars and stuff. And then after that, I crafted the vortex beater and used that to kill Moon Lord. I would have tried it on Eventide, except the fact that I actually died in the Moon Lord domain, because the way the quest works is after you kill the cultists and do the pillars, then it gives you a portal into the Moon Lord domain too. And figuring out the Moon Lord domain was just kind of annoying to get through. Like I got all the way up to the cloud layer, and then I was like getting stuck on blocks and stuff, and I just died because I only had 3 lives left from the cultist thing, and solar pillars, and yeah, mostly the solar and the nebula pillar were kind of actually no, solar pillar was fine. It was Stardust I died to, and Nebula that I died to. But regardless, yeah. And then I beat him on the second try. So that was the only domain I actually failed ever, was that Moonlord domain the first time, just because I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. More than that, more than anything. Yeah, killed him on the second run. Thankfully, you don't have to worry about, you know, retrying the Moonlord because you get infinite attempts. Basically, the portal stays open. Um, in terms of the other boss progression, I think I want to say I want to get out of the way first. This mod is sick. They've done so much. Already they patched, you know, like 6 times already. Providing updates and stuff. There's a global chat, as you can see. It's really sick. You know, people are talking, typing. I'm just gonna mute it for now though. But it's really cool, and there's so much to be done, and so much that they've already done. That's really sick. Obviously, I mean the whole system. You've got, you know, the gear system, the passive system, including skill trees and stuff, and various other things, right? And then the quests and the mapping and everything. There's a lot of cool stuff, and the online tech and the yeah, the sub worlds and all this cool stuff, and it's really good. And my only issue again is just some of the bugs, right? Which will get patched up and fixed, but specifically with progression, I think, you know, bugs outside of progression are manageable, but when they actually impede your progress, it can get quite annoying. And I had that happen quite a few times. Some of the bugs have already been fixed, but yeah. Before anything, let's just I'm gonna go through some of the actual progression and stuff, and just kind of talk about it and my experience and my thoughts and all that. So yeah, I wanted to do it like this because I think it's probably the easiest way to kind of organize everything. So yeah, early progression. Again, aside from the bugs, honestly, the whole quest thing was quite good. Um, I think toning down some of the domains, you know, like Skeletron. I know they've cut it down since I even did it, but I don't know. It could also be the passive tree is quite extensive now, so you have more options when you're going into these domains. For example, in the Skeletron domain, you know, I actually didn't die a single time in that domain. Because I took it really slow, and I swapped my tree to like a regen tree, with a little bit more HP and stuff, so that I can actually take some hits from the traps and things, which I think is really nice that you can kind of, you know, on the fly be like, okay, this is the domain I'm going into, this is the quest I'm on. Let me swap it up, um, which is really nice. And then of course they did reduce the size of the Skeleton domain and the Golem domain. Again, I got through those before that change went through. But even still, I didn't have as much of a problem this time, and I think the tree helped a lot with that because it gave you a little bit more options to help kind of you know, get your way through it. Um, yeah, I mean, I did have before I had an issue with some of the domains like the Deerclops one. This time around, I mean I got through it with no problem because I knew what I was doing. I think if you don't know how it works, then yeah, you'll probably have more of an issue. And speaking on that, when you're in a domain, I don't know. Let me just throw in like a really easy one real quick. Like I could do the map just so I can show this off, um, and not just, you know, be yapping to it, wall of text. But this thing here, one, it kind of overlaps with the crafting menu, which is kind of annoying. But if I can get it, there it is. Um, so this is supposed to kind of give you, okay, climb to the eye of his resting ground and best it, right? Okay, sure. So you just go straight. This domain is, you know, quite simple. It works well for early progression because, you know, you're gonna be a lot weaker. All these eyes are gonna actually pose a threat, you know, and it's simple, straightforward, right? You don't want to do too much. I think it works really well. Nice arena too, really cool. And then, you know, all this stuff spawns here. Great feature, this kind of loot vacuum thing. And then there's the space. And then there's the, you know, loot thing. So here I can be like, okay, I want to keep this desert map. Let me my trash. Actually, what do I trade? Mushrooms. Okay. And then you can right click out, and then when you click X, it sends you back. Really good system. I think it's a nice compromise for now on the loot filter issue. You know, and things will improve on that front too later. Maybe you'll actually be able to filter it, and then your currency goes here, um, you know, and that kind of thing. So really smooth, really simple, straightforward. As long as there's no bugs or anything, then we're chilling. But that little tree icon that I was talking about, I think it should probably go like outside of your menu. Like it should be like here under your mini map or something. Um, I would say probably under the mini map, or maybe even like here or somewhere. Somewhere very visible and forward facing, because having it under your inventory in this little spot, one, again, like there's this weird overlap issue where you have to have your mouse like right here. Um, and then two, it's very easy to miss. I didn't even know it was a thing myself until a little bit into progression. And a lot of people I've seen did not, in like typing in global or in Discord, did not even realize it was a thing. So I think that would really be helpful if it was moved to somewhere much more visible, like permanent, and that is so obvious that you're like, okay, I know exactly what to do. So when you're going through and maybe you're a new player, you don't know how to go through the domain, you can hover it and it'll tell you kind of an idea of what to do, right? And I think that would solve any issues with confusing domains and stuff like that. Um, Now to go back to the questing, um, so okay, I kind of got on a tangent there, but for the intro quest, I will say some of these feel a lot more kind of difficult to complete than others, right? Like stuff like the magical returnal, right? You have to kill goblin army, which is fine. It's just that you can easily trigger this at like really early on, right? Level one, basically, one or two, technically two, probably because of the XP you've gotten from tutorial quests and all that. Um, which can be, it's fine, it's doable as long as you have a weapon that's not complete garbage. Um, but it can be a lot harder than something like, kill some owls, or you know gather a couple materials and make this stuff. Just a thought. Not really super important, but maybe that goblin quest could be separated out. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, but maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, anyway, that's fine. The early quests are fine. I mean, you're gonna be doing a lot of that stuff anyway. Stuff like mining, because you need like lead and cobwebs and all that. You're gonna be gathering that stuff to begin with. Although I will say there probably needs to be some very intentional decision as to how much the mod cares about vanilla, because you do have to do quite a bit of farming. I mean, life fruit alone and chlorophyte and stuff. Obviously, there's a big discrepancy there with just how vanilla functions. Where, yeah, you're gonna be doing a lot more exploring in the jungle, stuff like the temple and that kind of thing. But beyond that, it's not super important. I mean, getting shimmer, elevator, obviously, uh, and then what else? Yeah, corruption, dungeon. I didn't even explore the dungeon actually, so I think it's right now it's sitting at a decent balance. Personally, I think it's fine. Because you can't just ignore like the overworld, right? It's really tough to do that because players need like resources and stuff. So I think having some integration with it is okay, and I think the level of it currently is not too bad. Um, Although it could be played with here and there. Like, okay, maybe we make certain resources drop, commonly used resources drop in domains and stuff, or as quest rewards and stuff like that beyond just XP, so that players have to engage a little bit less and can focus a little bit more on the mod quest. So that's always a thing to consider. And then, yeah, getting into the actual quests and stuff beyond the beginning. Yeah, King Slime, Cthulhu, these are no problem. I've heard people having some bugs with the Cthulhu, like potion thing. Again, just double check. I didn't have issues, but I've seen in global chat at least two people talk about having issues with that. Again, those are just bug things. I think it can be quite annoying, especially Queen Bee. Um, I had some personal bugs with that and Wall Flush too. I'll talk about it in a minute. Eater, no problem. I think domains overall are pretty balanced, pretty okay. I didn't have any issues clearing them this time. And again, you don't even have to do all of these, right? I think it's just, you know, King Slime, and then Eye of Cthulhu, and then either Eater or Brain, obviously, and then just two of these, either Deerclops, Queen Bee, Skeletron. You know, you can just choose two of them, I believe, which is nice. So yeah, the speed and stuff is definitely attainable, and if you want it, right? Difficulty is solid, I think. Um, you know, the bosses aren't too hard; they're pretty quick. The domains are definitely more of a challenge, which I think was the intention. Um, than the actual boss fights, in for the most part. Uh, Although stuff like King Slime with like very little gear can be a little bit tricky, but you know, I didn't have a problem with it, and most people probably won't, because you deal plenty of damage with some of the skills you get and things like that. Uh, yeah, Deerclops Arena could be actually that's not true. I think Deerclops is fine because you do get that double jump thing, which I don't remember if it was there before. That might have been a. It wasn't there on launch, I don't think, but I could be wrong. Either way, that definitely helps. So that you can actually dodge his attacks and stuff like that. So you don't really need any fancy like verticality to the Deerclops fight. I don't think because of that. So that works well. Queen Bee. The main issue is that some of the you have to collect two honey globs or whatever, and combine them and then spawn the queen bee. And there were two issues I had with this. The first time I went around and did this, this is the first time I had to actually like, you know, do stuff for bugging reasons. But it didn't give me one of the clumps. Like I broke it and then it just didn't drop. Um, like I mined it. You're supposed to mine it and stuff. Sometimes it automatically pops out, but yeah. Anyway, so I only had one, so I had to, and this was back when domains were bugged, and I've still heard some bugs about this where they wouldn't close properly, so they would just remain open, and that instance would remain open unless you went into the files and deleted the world files and stuff. Um, which fixed the bug, but it's like, you know, you don't really want players to have to do that, right? Um, so there's some issues with that. Hopefully that'll get fixed. And then one time when I did craft the spawner, it just didn't spawn the queen bee and it consumed the spawner too. So that did happen. And then yeah, I've heard of people having issues with Skeletron domain where the portal doesn't spawn to the arena for Skeletron. I didn't have that problem. I heard it was a thing. And Wall of Flesh, this was perhaps the most annoying thing because it just didn't give me this earthquake. I just didn't get this earthquake. And I've heard of other people having this issue as well, but then some people didn't. So I think it's like a weird, you know, thing. I think overall, and from what I've seen, this is gonna happen is that there just needs to be fail safes in place to where, you know, maybe in the Queen Bee arena there's more than just two uh royal honey clumps or whatever they're called, the honey globs, honey clump, whatever. So that, you know, if one of them goes missing, you can just grab another one, um you know, just it doesn't even have to be an extra room. It could just be multiple in the same room. You know, I get that the whole point is that you go to one side and in the other. Um, so there's a little bit of complication with that, but maybe I don't know. Maybe the final enemies that spawn can drop it as well, something like that. You know, I'm not sure. Either way, and same with Wall of Flesh. Like this earthquake just not happening. Either it needs to be 100%, you know, encounterable, because no matter what I did after all the updates and stuff too, there were some updates that were supposed to fix it, didn't happen. So I ended up having to go to another world and grab a guide voodoo doll and just spawn him in. And that thankfully that worked. That got me into hard mode and then enabled me to go into the hard mode quests. So luckily there isn't some dependency on quest completion here, because I just didn't even get the quest. But yeah, hopefully that'll get fixed. And again, maybe there's some way to implement a failsafe on this too. This one's a little bit more difficult, I think. Anyway, yeah, I'm sure it'll get fixed. It's not a big deal. This is also one of the domains that I can't comment on because I literally never ran it. Now I probably could because I have a couple of maps now. Um, but I'm sure it's fine. the all the other ones are fine, so I think it's okay. Um, yeah, and then we get into hard mode. So this quest line in particular, with this, I think I know it says Tinkerer here, but I think it's Pira now or whatever. This I had so many issues with her spawning and giving me and actually giving me the quest. Um, essentially, what would happen is I would complete. So here, it says hard mode must be active. Okay, cool. Hard mode was active. I went into the Raven Crest town multiple times, and it would just not spawn her in. See, she's still not spawning in. So she's supposed to be in this building here, um, but she just doesn't spawn when the instance first loads. And then when I leave and come back, she'll spawn in. But she didn't always, even when she did spawn in, she didn't always offer me a quest, even though all my conditions were met for the quest, right? And the problem is, she has 4 quests that she gives you, right? So once I finally got her to give me this one, then it was time to get this one, and just getting the quest, like getting it to where it would show up on my quest list and stuff, took me a bunch of tries just to reload and delete the files of the subworld and like do all this, finagling and stuff just to get her to actually offer the quest. And that was after she would spawn in. Um, eventually it worked for all of them, but it just took like each one took probably like an hour just individually just trying to get the quest to be acceptable. Um, and I didn't have that issue with any of these other ones, thank goodness. But yeah, it was just this NPC, and I think it probably has something to do with the fact that this building doesn't start out, it starts out run down and stuff, and then it gets, changed, and then maybe I don't know. There's obviously some weird stuff. Anyway, it'll get fixed, but just something to take note. I think it's super important. I think fixing the progression is paramount. Like debugging the quest progression and stuff, because it's mandatory, right, for you to actually get to endgame. Um, and it's the new player experience, right? Every new player is gonna run through this, and if they encounter a bug, they're gonna get really frustrated and just probably quit unless they have a little bit of determination and they might push through. But yeah, and of course then there's all this stuff where I'll get to in a minute, but some of the other quests as well I had an issue with. Well, one particularly. Um, yeah, again, in terms of difficulty, I think it was chill. Um, yeah, most of these were not a big problem. Like, I think, again, as long as that little tree icon that gives you info on the domain is visible, I think there won't be any issues with people figuring out, okay, this is how it works, this is how that works. I will say the Twin Terrace domain was a little annoying because you basically just have to run around searching for the switch, and there's these enemies in that domain that are incredibly frustrating. They're the one, I think they're called Slimers or something. They grab you, right? And they grab you for like 10 seconds plus, and you just can't move. Um, and I mean, as long as you have the damage to kill everything that aggroes you and stuff in that time, it doesn't matter. But it's just really frustrating because they follow you around and track you. You have to like Cthulhu dash and stuff and like grapple and stuff just to avoid them. And it's like in a way that's not very intuitive. Like there's no, you just kind of have to run as fast as you can and hope that they don't grab you. So I don't know if they're supposed to grab you for that long. It's one thing if it's like a couple seconds, right? Like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then but it's like 10 plus seconds of just like you not being able to do anything. Like you can attack, but you can't move, right? It's quite frustrating when the whole point is you trying to run around through this maze and find a switch, right? And then you're just like, oh goodness, here we go again. Here's the grabber. I'm just gonna have to waste a bunch of time, right? It's not a difficulty thing. Um, so yeah, just reducing and maybe making it so that it could only do it on a timer or something, right? It can't just grab you and then immediately grab you again because it can do that, which is really frustrating. But beyond that, I think all the domains are fine. I didn't have any issues. If people don't have like good mobility, then the fish on one could be a little tricky, but that's kind of on them. That's on their gearing and stuff. I think it's perfectly fine to have those kind of stopgaps. Um, yeah. What is it? Oh yeah. So now this quest, the Empress of Light quest, this one, it it's supposed to give you these visors that you put on, right? And then you go to the surface hallowed with those visors on at nighttime, or maybe in daytime too, because sometimes they're spawning in daytime, but mostly at night. And you collect these crystals from these enemies that spawn while you're wearing those. It's a really cool idea. It's just that the guy didn't give the visors, the this Ulrich, the wizard guy. He's supposed to give you the visors, right, as like a quest item. So yeah, again, this goes back to just implementing the fail safes and stuff. If he doesn't give it to you, well, one, ideally he gives it to you, right? And then two, if he doesn't, you know, it should either be in his shop or there's a button you click to get them again or something, right? Like they're not like game breaking. They don't really do anything for you. So I don't think it's an issue if you're able to just get like a bunch of them, right? Like an infinite number of them. Um, Same with stuff like the potion for the Eye of Cthulhu, right? Just a way to get that back. I think there is a way to get this back, and there is a way to get the Deerclops map again, but you can like rebuy it for like 20 gold, which is pretty steep. I think it should probably be like 10 gold or something. And then these other maps, well, the Queen Bee is fine because you just spawn in the portal with your little bee summon. Which is a little confusing actually. Some people were struggling with how to even do that. I saw in the global chat. I mean, it's described on the wiki, so maybe it's okay, but it's just one of those things that isn't super intuitive. Um, I'm talking about like having to use the Grimoire summon to spawn the portal by holding him in the honey. Um, anyway, yeah. So there's that, and then yeah. So as long as there's a failsafe, like this was the only one that I was really annoyed about because I actually had to like install like a heroes mod or whatever, a cheat mod basically, to actually like spawn the item in. I did it on another character, and then I took the item from the other character and put it in a chest in the world, so I didn't like contaminate my like main character. But just the fact that I even had to install that kind of mod is just like kind of like I just wish I didn't have to, right? Um, because it kind of spoils the experience a little bit, right? Because you're like, I don't know, even if it's something like that in my head, I'm like, your head's like, oh, but I could just do that for any item. You know what I mean? And it just kind of like immediately takes, especially when you have to like cheat something in like that. Obviously, it'll get fixed. I'm not worried about that, but just something to keep in mind in terms of the gravity of like fixing that kind of stuff. I think is like by far the other than of course like the crashes and stuff that just makes it impossible to play. Those are the most important bugs to fix. Um, or and even if there isn't a way to like completely resolve it, again, adding a fail safe to where you can get the visors, the crystal visor, like again, right? Um, Same with all the other ones because I know a lot of the map ones are not repeatable. Luckily I didn't have to repeat them. I first tried all of them, um, and I think most people will probably, as long as they have an idea of what they're doing. But for those who don't, not being able to retry it, right? Even if there's some small penalty like a gold fee or to rebuy the map or something, that definitely needs to be there, right? Yeah. And then yeah, I mean the final quest is cool. I like the added challenge of having to do it all like on like 6 lives or whatever. And I like the fact that the Moon Lord fight is repeatable independently, which is really nice. I think that is handled really well. The Moon Lord domain is a little funky, especially the cloud layer. The cloud layer is really kind of cringe because you just get stuck and it's really dark, so it's really hard to see where you're going, where you're supposed to go, and like what tiles are actually passable and whatnot, right? Because some of them are like cloud block or like the storm cloud block or or whatever it's called, the gray cloud block, and then some of them are like background walls and when it's really dark like that and you're having to fight stuff so you can't hold out a torch or something the whole time, it's just a little annoying. It's not the end of the world. I mean, I just ended up mining through it. Thankfully you can actually mine through that one, but yeah, it could just be a little there's probably a better way to kind of structure at least that section. The rest of it's perfectly fine though. And then distant travels, yeah, simple enough. Nothing really there. Overall, I think yeah, the quests are nice. I like the hard mode quests a lot. I think with the bugs resolved, I won't there won't be any issues really. Um, yeah, early quests, tend to take a little bit more work, which is fine because that's kind of when you're doing a lot of your you know material gathering and whatnot. Anyway, yeah, so I think the quest overall, the main thing is just, yeah, bugs and that kind of thing. Progression and balancing feels pretty smooth in terms of the actual quests and domains and difficulty level of the fights and whatnot. Now, the other side of the coin is player power and itemization, specifically. Now, um, before that, I do want to talk a little bit about the tree. So it's kind of annoying to look at it here because you can't zoom out. I know that's something that they're wanting to add later. I can understand that it might be a little bit difficult to do right now, but anyway, the tree is solid, and I think most. I mean, the one outlier is just range. Range is so strong. The tree for range just has so much power compared to any other archetype, and not just range, but specifically guns. Um, are just by far and away the best like archetype, I guess, right now for campaign clearing. I mean, I think that's evident by the top people on the leaderboard pretty much all being ranged except for like one or two like summoners and mages and basically no melee. Um yeah, I might be one of the few melee classes and I'm not even playing melee technically right now. I'll talk about some of my end game ideas for builds and stuff at the end, but so I really think the melee. I mean, I can't speak for summoner because I don't really know. Like, I didn't look much at summoner at all. Obviously, mage is going to be a little tough because of mana, right? And the mana pot problem. Um, and then there's some issues with like the channeling stuff and mana regen and the way that it interacts with the base game mechanics to where you don't actually regen mana while you're using it. And various other things like that, right? You have to be you can't be flying or anything. You have to be on the ground to regen mana and that kind of thing, right? It can be quite annoying. But of course, I'm sure it scales well. There's a lot of scaling options for magic damage. Um, Summoner damage seems to be quite strong too. Some of the, I think the first level 100 was a summoner, right? So clearly it's quite strong. In the end game, in terms of progression, I can't really speak on it, but my guess is that it's not terrible, because whips seem okay, and there's a lot of ways to scale, especially with crit, and um, yeah, you have good itemization options, I think, um, and good summons and whatnot, right? Melee's really, I think, really tough to play, especially when it comes to hard mode. Um, I think yo-yos are probably viable if you actually get lucky and get a yo-yo glove, which I didn't, so I wasn't able to actually play it all the way through because I just didn't ever find the merchant guide to sell me a yo-yo glove. So I can make the yo-yo bag and stuff. But it's probably okay. It's still not going to be nearly as good as stuff like range, right? Range just has the best clear. What did I just? Just the best clear and the best all around damage, right? It has insane single target, insane clear, and also you get the benefit of being at range, right? The other thing with melee is that your defensive options, while good, aren't enough for a lot of the hard mode enemies, specifically not the bosses. The bosses are much more manageable because it's one boss, you just have to focus on dodging. Most of them don't do an insane amount of damage or anything, at least not yet. So the problem more so is a lot of those other situations where you're fighting a ton of enemies, right? Say like the pillars and stuff, for example, right? before you get stuff like solar armor or whatever, where you're getting a ton of um, defenses and whatnot. The other thing is, yeah, obviously this will get fixed with time, but there's just no weapon support um, for stuff like there are only yo-yos really, and even the yo-yos is like pretty minimal in terms of damage scaling. It's nice to have this wheel, right? Because you do get some, the masteries are pretty decent. But I think some of this stuff, like I don't think Titanic Impact works on yo-yos. I was having, I don't know, it's a little bit hard to tell, but when I was testing it, I never noticed the knockback, which was very noticeable when I was using swords in the beginning. Very noticeable. Because the enemy goes freaking flying across the screen. But then when I was using yo-yos, for a little bit, it just didn't. Yeah, it didn't work. I don't think. That might need more testing. I'm not saying it's bad. This one is quite. I don't think this is very good. But beyond this one, because crits are a little bit harder to scale as melee. That's the other thing too. Again, I think it's a lot of just options, right? Like there's like no crit nodes in this melee section. There's some here which are, and then you have to go all the way over here for like flat crit, right? Like anyway, yeah. So having like something like this, other than getting crit through your gear, which is doable, there's just no there's just not as many options on the tree, right? For stuff like melee, bleed is not good to index into early on. I think it's fine later, but early on the stacks don't hold long enough and to actually get some of these benefits like the healing and stuff. And again, you can't critting is quite hard to scale on melee, especially since crit got removed on shield. So my shield right now, I've been using this level 5 shield because it gives base crit, right? Plus a 6.83 base crit. So I actually have crit chance. If I took this off, 23.9, if I took this off, like I'm down to 15, and it used to be a lot worse. I used to be at like 20 and it would go down to like 10 when I took it off, right? Because the scaling. I mean, I get the idea that you want to differentiate shields from stuff like quivers and stuff, but I don't know like how without tree support for crit, how do you go crit on like a melee build without doing, pathing all the way to all these black crit nodes and stuff, and then rolling like some decent crit on your weapons or whatever, right? Or running, that kind of thing. So yeah, in terms of progression, range is just by far the strongest. I'm sure summer is not bad because you don't rely on mana, right? Magic damage is mana reliance, so that creates an issue where you're very much bottlenecked by mana, and that can't really be solved in any way because potions have cooldowns. You can't regen mana while spending it. Um, and then there's no real like mana return or recovery or anything like that on hit or on kill and stuff like that. So it's quite tricky, I think, in that regard. Once you get to endgame, it's probably okay, and it's quite strong. I'm sure. The only endgame setup that I'm worried about right now is bows, and not really bows. Bows just don't have as many good options as guns, right? Like here, it's like okay, you have explosive slugs. That's insane for guns. You have this, which you're never clicking almost ever, because when are you ever standing still? Especially once you get to endgame. Um, this one is pretty much always. I mean, it's fine. This one is okay. This one is probably okay. I think it's always a DPS loss, unless you're using like glorified bullets or something, or a particular weapon that. I tested this right on Eventide, which is quite important for all your arrows to hit, and this is strong because you hit with multiple arrows at the same time, right? And this like halves your DPS. So obviously it's not good on everything, but it's okay. It's fine. Like there are scenarios where you can potentially take this, right? This one, it's really strong, and I get the idea, but it's just like, when are you ever going to stand still for 3 seconds? Probably never. Especially since I don't know how long this buff lasts. Like maybe if it lasts for like 10 seconds or something, it's maybe okay. Um, yeah, I mean this is great. This note is really nice. I still am not. I don't know. This one's a little awkward. This one I never took, but maybe it could be useful. I don't really think so. I don't think ammo conservation is that important. Because you can always farm more ammo fairly easily. But anyway, that's another story. So the main point is that guns are quite a bit stronger because they just they just benefit from some of these nodes like this one, right? Like there's no range equivalent, right? And even I don't know if this explosive slugs works with the explosive thing, but not that you would index into it because it's 30% of base damage, so it's not really worth scaling that 30% independently. But like instead of just scaling your total damage, your base damage, right? But yeah. Also, what is this supposed to be here? I thought it wasn't. This doesn't make any sense to me. Clearly, this isn't meant to be. Why would it with range be all the way over here? But anyway. Yeah, so melee just doesn't have too many options for scaling damage beyond rage, which is great, but it also works for ranged, right? And then yeah, this yo-yo cluster bleed it's okay, but it doesn't have the same support as like poison. I know poison will eventually get changed to all projectiles or maybe all damage or something. But like this one obviously has more damage from poison stack. That's a really nice damage multiplier that you can index into. Bleed just doesn't have it, right? It's like this is like clear. This is like maybe this is significant. I would have to test this. I'm sure it's good end game, but like I'm talking about progression, like 1 to 50 ish. You just don't have a lot of options for melee damage. Basically, what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's quite hard to scale some of that in terms of like during campaign. I think end game is doable a little bit more so, right? And some of the melee weapons, to be fair, like Star Wrath is going to be ridiculously strong even without stuff, right? Like I'm sure if I'm okay, I can't get my demo, but I'm sure this would be doing probably close to as much as my Vortex damage wise. If I rolled it correctly and whatnot. Without even points on the tree, probably, just because of how strong it is. And of course, it doesn't have ammo either. Anyway, so now the main point for itemization that I think is by far the most important out of all is the defense. The defense side of things, the armor, the kind of the offhand. I think rings are in a really nice spot. They're quite strong. You just slap some decent rings that have basically good res and good life on them, or good mana, depending on what you care about, and you're good to go. They do the job fantastically. And that's kind of probably going to be their place. Maybe some of the unique rings and stuff might change that, but for the most part, these are just going to be those kind of stat stick kind of items where you're just looking to get res and some max life, maybe max mana too, which is nice. That's fine. Accessories are a little bit awkward. I think a lot of the awkwardness with weapons, with gear, with accessories, rings a little less so because it's a little bit easier to just drop a rare one and throw it in, right? But some of the accessories where it's like, look at what I'm using. You know what I mean? And the reason why is, one, because I would have to go out of my way to really get good, much better accessories. And two, it's like, they're not super impactful. I mean, in some of them, it's like, okay, Cthulhu Shield, like, I just use it for the dash, right? Like, I like having the dash when I'm bossing so that I can actually dodge mechanics and stuff, right? So that's a preference. The reason why I'm using this volatile gelatin is just because it has 34 strength. And, yeah, again, I'm gonna have to go out of my way to find something that's quite whatever. That's a me thing, but I think the biggest problem is you're working with magic only gear. Like one, there's no. This is okay. Maybe if we're talking specifically accessories right now, right? You're looking at accessories. You know, you're not dropping accessories other than maybe from bosses, right? Um, like pretty much only from bosses exclusively. Like yeah, you might craft them here and there, but even when you craft them, the problem persists where they're all going to be common, right? Like boss drops and that kind of thing. Like I haven't gotten a single boss drop that isn't common. Like I don't know if that's a bug or if that's intended or what, but like you know these Moonlord items, for example, like I get crafted stuff. Of course, it's going to be common. That's fine. But like boss dropped items, they should have a chance of being rare. Maybe they do, and I'm just unlucky. But like all of these were common, right? And then I just had to craft on them, which would be fine if there was something to turn them into a magic item. Now I know that's being worked on and added into the game because I sprited the shard for the for that very reason, for that like for that specific item, right? That turns magic items into rare. So once that gets added, this will probably be fixed. But it's just it's quite tough to really push some of your gear slots because you just have no way of getting those extra stats on them. And to be honest, base stuff just cannot compete. One, I mean, there aren't any mod exclusive accessories that I know of, which is fine. There doesn't need to be really. As long as you can drop rare ones, which from what I've seen, there you can't, but maybe you can, right? I think it's fine to focus more on like the amulets and rings and offhand, and let vanilla just pick up these accessory slots and stuff. I mean, there could be some unique items and stuff that go here later. It's not as important as something like armor. Now, armor's in a really awkward spot. I mean, you can see I cleared the entire campaign on hallowed armor, mostly because of the set bonus, right? Um, you know, I've got block chance, max block chance, and then I've got dodge chance here, right? And then you've got your pots and stuff. So as long as you're not getting one tap, which rarely happened, that happened. Actually, I don't think it ever happened. No, that's not true. It did happen. It will happen on some stuff like explosives. If you just pop one of those, you're probably dead. But in terms of actually in domain, I don't think it ever happened. But I could be wrong on that. At least for me. But anyway, yeah. As long as you have some kind of like hit mitigation and stuff, then you're kind of chilling in like. It's impossible for the let me see. Yeah, like this stuff. Like this is an item level 70, you know, chest piece. Okay, maybe it's even if I look at where's do I have any? Yeah, here's like a rare one, right? Here's yeah, item level 65, right? This is just never gonna compete. Like even with some decent rolls on the stats, at least right now, I'm sure it will like at the very top end once you get to like much higher item levels. But the set bonuses on some of these vanilla armor, they're just way too strong. Like way too strong. And the defense numbers as well. Like the defense numbers, like keep in mind these are item levels 65 and they're giving 7, 11, 5, right? This is giving 9, 15, 11. And this is hallowed. Right? This stuff only drops in like the Moonlord domain and the cultist domain and that kind of stuff, right? So there's a huge discrepancy between like the PoT like armor and vanilla armor. It just gets outclassed, and the problem is there's no way to really augment these further. So it's really awkward because you're sitting on pretty low defense. Like even for range, this is quite low. But you know, in terms of defensive options, even for melee and stuff, you don't have as many right now. And so stuff like this, you know, become immune, right? Is so valuable. Even if I was melee, I would probably still be running hallowed armor. Um, and the problem is during progression, right? You're basically always just crafting. Like maybe in the early game, sure, you'll probably be throwing on some of these like PoT gear, which is fine. That works. Okay, cool, right? Like there are like you know like, okay, if you drop these, you'll probably throw them on for like a level, and then like once you get something that actually have defense, like okay, here's one that gives you max potion and some whatever. But then once you get past that point, once you get into like hard mode or like even end of um or pretty hard mode, you're kind of just in a spot where your pretty much only option is to craft vanilla gear. I mean, I did kill wall flesh with like I think like some vanilla helmet and then like PoT like chest and boots. But like once you get into hard mode and you actually need like the set bonus is just outclassed, right? They just outclassed. Um, Especially in hard mode. Pre-hard mode, the set bonuses don't really exist as much, right? It's not as big of a deal. Um, but yeah, it's definitely something to just keep in mind. Is that the defense, the armor side of things is quite lacking, and um, you just don't get the currency to modify your stuff. So that's the other thing too. Like you get plenty of unfolding shards. Glimmering shards are quite a bit rarer. And then of course there's no, regal orb, PoE regal orb equivalent, right? Where you upgrade a magic to a rare. Unless that's what I don't actually know what this one is. I've never even found one of these. I know this is like the Mirror of Kalandra one. I don't know what this is. Um, I think it's an Exalt orb, but that's what this is, no? Yeah, that's what this is. I don't know. And this is annulment. This is chaos. Yeah, scouring. I don't know what this is actually. Anyway, um, but I know it's not the magic to rare chart. I know that. Um, but yeah, I think some of the lower tier currencies just need to be a little bit more accessible. I think the rare, like rare magic to rare currency can be, you know, not super rare, probably as rare as the limpid charts, I would say. Maybe a little bit more common even. These are quite rare. These or maybe these could go up. Either way, there's not a lot of ways to you don't get enough currency, right? And you can't buy them because the guy sells them for like 25 gold a pop on these or something like that, right? Which you can buy later, but early game, not really. So trying to reroll your gear is a little bit annoying. So you kind of end up where in a situation where you just get something really strong and you just keep it forever, which is fine. It's just yeah, that's how it is right now, right? But for armor, it's a little bit different, where you basically constantly need to be getting this defense number higher and higher just to start not getting one tapped, right? Um, Now I think some of that's been fixed. There was an issue where damage conversion was like not functioning correctly, so mobs would be hitting for like their full base damage and like contact damage was always critting and stuff. So that got resolved. So it's definitely not as much of an issue, but even still, it just feels kind of bad to sit on magic stuff and be like, yeah, there's not much I can do, and it's not even worth me, equipping these like high item level bases because they just don't compare to set bonuses, and even the numbers on the defense numbers on them are so low. I mean, like 11 to 15 on and this is like a basically a Moon Lord tier item. It doesn't even make sense, and I'm not even comparing it to stuff like the yeah, like Vortex armor. I think Vortex armor chest piece is you know, like 28 defense, right? 20 defense, 14, right? Like, I mean, obviously the helmets are usually low, and range is going to be lower. I mean, like this is just it's not even comparable, and that's set bonus aside, you know. And the problem is armor doesn't roll anything except for like res, potions, max mana, max life, maybe charges on kill. Um, it's basically all defense, right? Which is fine, but again, there's nothing crazy stuff like um, chance to avoid damage or like which is what this hallowed set bonus is, right? Basically, it's like on a cooldown, but it guarantees that you're gonna dodge your next hit or whatever. Um, I think some I know dodge rating is incredibly strong in Terraria, but just some level of it might be nice, or even just like I don't know, like for some melee gear, like a block cooldown reduction would be really OP. But even if it's just very small, there's got to be something to incentivize players to not just run with you know a full set of vanilla gear, for both the defense and the especially when you can modify these right. Now, this is specifically for campaign. I don't know how it scales into end. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Maybe you start dropping some insane gear pieces, right? Like stuff with like 50 defense and like, absurd amounts of like max life and okay, sure. But during the questing experience, you're almost always going to be running with a set of gear. At least in like from Wall of Flesh all the way up to Moonlord, right? At least, right? I mean, pre-hard mode is clearable with like PoT gear, but I mean, I think part of the issue there is just the base types, right? Like obviously these are all using the armor, the iron armor sprites, right? So you know they probably just haven't gotten around to making more base types and that kind of thing. You know, there should be like a platinum, tier, and then like a, I don't know, something beyond that, right? Like towards the end of pre-hard mode, and then like, early hard mode, mid hard mode, late hard mode should probably also have different base types. Um, so that you're constantly looking for upgrades. Because that's the biggest thing here is that like, I mean, one of the biggest parts of an ARPG is the itemization, right? And loot drops and upgrading your gear via whatever you drop or craft, right? I mean, dropping transitions into crafting depending, right? I think the system is quite good because, you know, um, right now it kind of goes off of some of the vanilla items, but I think if you start making the droppable gear much stronger, currency will definitely not be as good. It'll be more for like min-maxing those items and stuff, which is fine. I think that's perfectly fine. Um, Now, again, I think it's just a matter of adding extra base types. But I think there is the problem of the set bonus, right? The set bonus for some of these vanilla Terraria items are so strong that it's going to be quite hard to justify not using them unless the numbers are ridiculously high, right? Um, Especially in that like hard mode zone, right? The hard mode gear progression is just going to be quite awkward, I think. So I don't know what the solution would be. I think my thought is just implicits, right? So having base types with implicits that are actually good, right? So for example, this Moonlord tier, iron helmet or whatever. Obviously, that's just the visual, but because these dropped in the like all of these here. This one I think dropped in a map in the forest map, but these dropped in the cultist domain, whatever it's called. Yeah, the cultist one or the pillar event, whatever. For example, right? Um, Same with offhands too, right? Some of these base types are like quite whatever. Like we're talking about, losing a ton of move speed or on shields, right? Like or like having a little bit of block chance when the cap is 40. Um, it doesn't really matter what you right. Like you can easily reach 40 without a ton of block on your shield. That might be bugged because I mean I'm at 40. I don't even know how I'm at 40 because all I have is just this shield. I don't even have nodes on the tree for block. Like I haven't clicked these, so that might be a bug. Um, yeah, it's a bug. There's no way that's not bug because I just lose all my block chance when I take off my shield, which only gives 10 plus 10 block chance. Um. Anyway, so yeah, so that yeah, I mean, getting more base types, I think, will solve a lot of these issues. I think rings are in a decent spot. Like the base types, it's like okay, you're going from 5 max life to like 15. Okay, that's solid, right? Or like 10 to like I have a somewhere in here. Yeah, like 15, right? Like Okay, okay, that's not bad, right? And of course, later on, I'm sure there'll be like res implicits and like other stuff on these offhands, right? Same with the shields. Um, a little bit higher defense numbers, maybe stuff like that, right? Maybe not the move speed penalties, which are kind of annoying. Um, I think they're probably okay during campaign and stuff, but like maybe for end game variants to not have that or something would be a good upgrade. You know what I mean? The ammo reservation, obviously, like, defense and that kind of thing, right? See, these give move speed, right? These just take it away, and these also give ammo reservation and defense, and these they give like a little bit of block chance and defense. So it's a little bit strange. I mean, I get thematically, I get it, but functionally, it's a little bit, yeah, it doesn't really line up, right? Um, yeah, amulets obviously like percent increased max life is quite strong. Um, so I think the implicits for the offhands are fine. I think as long as they scale well, right? Like maybe this becomes 5% at the top end or something, and then you know maybe the defense on these shields goes to like 10 or whatever at the top end or higher, and then block chance goes to like 20, and then the move speed penalty goes away, or maybe there's uniques with other effects and whatnot. And in terms of armor, I think implicits they just need to compete with the vanilla gear, right? Obviously, the good thing about this is that you can drop them rare. You don't have to waste currency on them. The crafted stuff you do, right? So that's one way to kind of restrict it, which is already in the game. But honestly, still using magic crafted gear is just better, right? I've been sitting on this forever, since the mech bosses, and before that I was using titanium, and before that I don't remember. I think I was using just PoT gear, probably. And then I went straight for titanium. I think I swapped my helmets out. Is what I did. I had a solid chest piece, solid boots, and then I went from like the demonite helmet to like the palladium helmet, and then titanium, something like that. But the point is, you know, like if you just look at some of these, and this goes for all of them, right? This gives maybe here. This is a better example. Let's see. So here's like my palladium helmet that I use, right? Literally, basically a nothing affix, right? 2.5 percent chance to gain haste charge on kill doesn't matter pretty much at all. But it's got 5 defense. It's got 9% increased damage, range damage, 9% increased range, group strike chance, right? I mean, like that's just it just doesn't exist on these helmets here, right? Like maybe if I can find a comparable, okay, item level 15, maybe that's a little bit low. Let's see, ultimate armor, level 70, okay, it's a little bit high. Okay, whatever. These still kind of prove the point though, where you've got stuff like the titanium one, 8 defense, 16% increased damage, 7 crit chance, you know, and then you go to this, which, you know, 7 defense, that's less defense, and nothing else. Like, that's it. So it just doesn't even compare. So I think there needs to be some, implicits that give, crit chance, damage. It could be just not like classless, right? And be slightly less, but maybe have higher defense or whatnot, right? Like there needs to be some implicits that provide some of these similar like crit chance or you know attack speed or yeah just damage, right? Anything, anything to like make it so that okay, and that's not even counting the set bonus, right? When you equip all these, you get a set bonus. This one gives you become immune after striking an enemy, right? Obviously, that immunity there's a 30-second window, and then when you do get hit, there's a cooldown, but it's still incredibly strong, especially when you're trying not to die and whatnot. And then when you pair it with stuff like block uh, and a decent hit pool, then okay, now that's some solid defense, right? You're maybe gonna dodge a couple hits. You've got your pots in case you do get chunked, right? At least one pot every 5 seconds or whatever. Um, Obviously, you can still get hit. If you get hit a bunch of times in a row, you're still gonna die. Like, it's just you're just gonna fall over, which happened a couple times. But it's still much better than some of these just having like a full set of the dropped armor and just running with no set bonus, no damage increases, nothing. Right? It's just not. It's just not doable. It's not even comparable, honestly. So yeah, I think just yeah, better base types with higher defense numbers and implicits that kind of mimic some of these additional bonuses, right? Like a lot of boots, they give move speed, they give flat, 7% increased damage. The chest piece, increased crit chance, right? On top of the big defense numbers, right? So stuff like that, like, should be implicit on some of these hard mode tier gear sets, right? That are dropping, right? So that players don't feel like, oh man, I'm just gonna have to craft vanilla stuff and I'm just gonna have to roll them and it's like kind of boring. And maybe they're common to start out, and right now we don't have the magic to rare, so you can't even get these up to all nice and shiny and stuff like that, right? You can't even get high res numbers in campaign very easily because I mean, like, not that you necessarily need it, but I don't have very high res because you just can't really upgrade this stuff, and it's like honestly it's better just to have the increased damage and defense and immunity set bonus than just trying to get res on these things. And they have some res, like this one has a little bit of fire res and stuff. So my point is, I think it's fine to have these gated. Okay, maybe you're going to be sitting on magic if you decide to craft vanilla gear. Okay, cool. But then where am I getting fun gear drop upgrades and stuff? Well, it would be through the mod items, but right now they just don't compete, right? So even if you drop a really good helmet, a rare helmet, right, with the high eye level, so supposedly its rolls have a potential to be much higher. It still just sucks in comparison. Yeah. Same goes with weapons. It's like, how do you compete with something like the Star Wrath, right? With some random, like, I not a single time through my playthrough did I use any of these, like random javelins, random staffs. Like, I just trash them all. I hold on to them in case I want to make another character or something. But even then, it's just like, oh, I dropped a death sickle. That's just way better. Like, and I can mod it at least a little bit, right? Um, like, a lot of these just are just not good because the numbers on them are so low in comparison. Even when you're dropping like high item level, it's still a copper broadsword, which has a specific roll range on the base damage and all this kind of stuff, and an incredibly slow attack speed, and it just feels bad to use. Like, why would I use that? I can just use freaking vortex meter or something, right? Um, Obviously this will get solved. I think it's a really weird conundrum, right? Because a lot of the vanilla items act as they're like unique items, right? They're like unique items. They all have specific effect. I get the idea of having these like base type copper broadsword. It doesn't have anything special. It doesn't have a cool effect. It just has stats. And you're supposed to craft on it, but it just doesn't. It doesn't mesh well with how strong some of the vanilla gear is, right? And I get the vanilla gear gets outclassed later. I'm just talking about progression right now because in progression, that's when you would assume you'd be using some of these, but you're just not. I mean, obviously the uniques are different, right? Stuff like this, I've been using this the whole game, mostly just because I like it. I mean, I sprited it, and also it's just cool. It has nice sound effects, and it also just activates my set bonus whenever I'm near an enemy and I'm not attacking it. My summon will hit it. It'll gen some rage. It'll proc my attack buff, right, for the stuff. So it's actually useful. even on melee, right? As an off, as a, like a alternate weapon, some summon or something, right? Or even on ranged or whatever. So some of the uniques are not bad, but like some of them are bugged too, I think. Wait, let's see. Yeah, like this one. So this one has like really good numbers on it. Okay, it's being inflated by my vortex speeder, but by default they're not bad, right? You'd expect okay, like I should be able to use this, but it's bugged. Like the hit rate on this is like turbo bug. I think this is a problem with the function though. Like I think it should only spawn clouds on hit. And that would solve the just make this act like pretty much every other yo-yo instead of having this trail, right? And then you wouldn't have the need to, you know, insert these weird iframes on the target and stuff. Because this is unusable. Like this is doing like pre-hard mode damage. As like a presumably hard mode unique. Like it literally is like hitting like I know it's probably a bug. It's that's the thing. But either way, like okay, this if this functioned correctly, right? And the clouds did, you know, some damage and it actually ticked and you know, and you're getting a lot of poison stacks, right? Like it's a good weapon in theory, right? But when you so yeah, uniques are going to be usable, right? As opposed to but the problem with vanilla items is that they're kind of all uniques, right? They all have some special effect, especially once you get into hard mode. Obviously, pre-hard mode is a different story. But even in pre-hard mode, there's going to be, you know, like you'll probably just use a unique anyway. Like I just used Simulacra or like for a Wall of Flesh, and before that I was using I don't remember. Actually, I was just using an Ice Blade. Yeah, because guess what? It's basically like a unique. It shoots a projectile. It's like really strong. Um. Oh yeah, I used Ice Blade for like King Slime and do I have it still? Yeah, I use this one. Like literally just a little bit of crit multiplier and like basically not nothing, right? Just a magic Ice Blade. I use this against King Slime, Cthulhu. I against Eater I used Ball of Hurt, which was actually it's in like one of his chests or something. But anyway, yeah, I use that right. This one, which is just you know it's free against if you're playing melee against something like the Worlds. You hit a ton of times, right? It's quite strong. So I use that, and then you can throw it out, and it just like you know just continuously hits all the segments, right? It's really strong. Um, you know, but again, it's like a unique weapon because it's a flail, does like the spinny attack and all this kind of stuff, and it has like insane hit rate, right? Like, so it's just compared to something like, again, some of these vanilla items. Like, what is it, you know? Like, this is IMO 45. So this is like, imagine dropping, if you drop this in pre-arm, you'd be like, whoa, dude, look at all this the stats and numbers. I get increased melee damage, I get added lightning damage, like, and then you're like, okay, I'm doing like 60 DPS. But then you can just use a Ball of Hurt, and you're like, oh, I'm doing 259 DPS. Like, and this is like a really early game item, right? Vanilla item. So there's just too much of a discrepancy there, I think. So it's really tough because it's like you can't just disable vanilla items, right? I mean that would just be really weird, right? I don't know. I mean, I guess you could, but I think I mean it's just hard, right? I mean, even if you had tiered base types, like maybe, but like maybe they could compete a little bit, but some of the effects and the way that they function, like this, like the hit rate, it doesn't pierce, like You know, okay, maybe you add a base type that has like a piercing damage attack, but like what is it? Like like when is this ever gonna be good? You know? Even against something like Keen Slime, there's no way you use a magic staff, right? Like no shot. Not when it has this weird like channel. Like the DPS is like negative. Because you're gonna be taking more damage than you're dealing, like 100% of the time, right? And then you just like 90 DPS versus like, you know, 77 with like much more uptime. Like I would rather use a wood yo-yo. You know what I mean? Um, so it's a little bit tough. The bow is a little bit of a different story because bows are all just stat sticks for the most part anyway. But again, like the hit rate, like the attack speed, and the you know, when you compare it to even like a unique, right? It's like I mean, don't pay attention to the numbers too much, but yeah, you get the point. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Overall, I think it's good. I'm gonna hopefully enjoy some of the end game now, and yeah, I've got a lot of builds that I want to try, or at least a couple level 100 trees and stuff that I want to implement and that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully I'll get there at some point. Just wanted to kind of make this. So far, everything else looks good. I think just itemization is quite tricky, right? It's just a like balancing act of vanilla versus mod versus and mostly during progression, right? Campaign is the difficult part. Obviously, in the end game, you can outscale it quite easily, just in sheer numbers. Like that'll be doable, right? Because vanilla stuff, at least outside of Zenith, has like a pretty hard. Like okay, this is kind of where you're at post Moon Lord. There's no up from there, so you can obviously just push numbers up. But during progression, it's much more of like okay, how do we make some of this stuff outside of the ones that you can't equip a vanilla item in this spot, so of course the rings are going to be good, right? How are we going to make some of these items viable? um yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. um right, because even some of these unique items like this one is not bad, right? I use this as well for a little bit, right? Like the attack rate's good. It's got the nice fall damage immunity. It's got a little bit of a AoE pulse effect that it does when you kill enemies and stuff. So I think but the problem is it's a unique, right? But in terms of like base items, how do you make base items like usable? Like I just don't see it. Like I don't see a world where weapons aren't just gonna be vanilla or a unique, which maybe is kind of the point. But then what's the point of all these base items, right? You might as well just not have them. So yeah, that's just kind of my thought on that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm kind of repeating myself over and over. Hopefully, probably could have just stopped an hour ago. But yeah. I mean, I think that's about it. Oh yeah, I did kind of want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the end game. I guess I could throw that in at the end. So here's like a tree that maybe I might use with a Terrarian or something if I can drop one. Haven't done that yet, but hopefully. I think it's melee is really tough again to scale. Zenith is Giga nerf, so it's kind of off the table. And there's not. I mean, Star Wrath is an option. Meowmer is kind of an option. Beyond that, but again, like I mean, you can scale them with Prit, and again, Endgame has some interesting options like this. Right, this is gonna be basically every build is taking this because you just get percent all damage based on your mana, right? And it's not even just a chunk of mana is going to give you a nice damage bonus, right? And then you can also take this, which gives you more damage on max mana. And if you don't use mana, then you're always on max mana, so it's just free damage. So that's good. It's a good scaling vector. You also got this, which just gives you 20%. 20% damage equates chaos, just 20% more damage, right? Like it's a no-brainer. The pathing is a little tricky, but it's doable when you have a lot of points, right? Um, so something like a yo-yo build would probably look like this, where you know you're basically just pathing around, grabbing the good clusters. Rage is of course insanely strong, even on stuff like Summoner and Mage. Like you still get these bonuses for getting rage, right? And you can still generate rage with your hits. You just don't gain the damage that the rage stacks inherently give, right? Rage stacks inherently give 1% attack and like a melee and range damage, right? But you still get the stacking crit, the damage reduction, the attack speed, and the chance to hit twice. Like those all function even outside of melee and range, right? So this is going to be taken by just about every build. Quite strong on yo-yos. You can opt for stuff like damage at a distance. Again, crit. This projectile node works for yo-yos, by the way. Obviously, it's only 5%, but it's kind of fun. Whatever. Projectile damage works on yo-yos. Marksman. Yeah, this is just good for clear. Helps spread your damage a little bit. You go crit, obviously, and then you take something like this, right? So you get more crit damage. That's quite strong. And then you can take stuff like this, which guarantees that you crit uh, every so often, right? They kind of mitigate each other. And then you can dip into, like, if you have some lightning damage, this will be a good option. If you don't have lightning damage, you could back into cold or fire, depending on what damage type you have. Lightning is just going to be the best because of shock. The shock effect is just OP for damage. Obviously, I'm sure freeze is nice for like CC and whatnot, and keeping yourself safe and that kind of thing. Ignite is maybe it's good. I don't know. It's just I'm not a big fan of dots outside of poison thematically, and yeah, I don't know exactly how much you can scale the damage and whatnot, but because it's based off your hit damage, right? The ignite is anyway, as opposed to like bleed or poison. So it's a little bit of an awkward thing to go for when you could just go for more damage elsewhere. I don't know. And then yeah, just getting a ton of int right for this deep pools, right? Um, yeah. So you've got like 150 int, some amount of strength for max life, defense, a little bit of defense. Yeah. So I think endgame trees are gonna look something like this. If you wanted a projectile route, obviously you would drop all these melee stuff. You'd probably path this way instead. You'd still be taking this cluster, probably come this way. So be taking this, this as well. You could opt for this depending. The bounce is quite nice for clear, but not necessary. So I probably wouldn't take it. I would just probably go here, grab up this mastery, maybe grab this one, grab this stuff, maybe some poison stuff, and then basically do this over here too. That's kind of my ideas anyway for both a range setup and a yo-yo setup. So we'll see. It just depends on the items that I get. But this is kind of gonna be what I push for. If I can get the yo-yo setup going, still don't have a yo-yo glove or yo-yo bag, so I'll have to hunt for that. And then if I do end up getting that plus an actual Terrarian to drop, then yeah, I'll probably do that. But outside of that, I'm probably gonna go for ranged. And in that scenario, I did make a tree. Let me see. Okay, yeah, here it is. So yeah, obviously quite similar, right? You pick up this stuff. These focus charges could probably be dropped if you're doing bossing, obviously, but it's just more damage, right, when you're mapping if you're actually getting them. If you have any on gear, then that'll stack, but 5% is probably fine. Yeah, defense, rage, obviously. This stuff here, Um, yeah, obviously yo-yos don't benefit as much from attack speed, so that's something to keep in mind. If you're not running yo-yos, then obviously you'd index way more into attack speed. That's how you could scale stuff like Star Wrath and whatnot, right? Um, but then yeah, of course, if you're ranged, like this setup is, it would again just be taking some of these clusters. Poison just scales well. Stuff like this. Again, this is just really good for bullets. Yeah, so this would be like a gun kind of SDMG sort of setup at level 100. Yeah, again, kind of just getting int, right? Not as much int, but still something. Right? Because you're not grabbing up these, which you could. I mean, I'm taking Magic Find on both of these setups, which might not be super necessary. I don't know. You kind of want to grab this one anyway. This node max mana. So yeah, you could drop this, opt for this lightning damage cluster, opt for more int or whatever. Drop this, do the same. There's some flexibility there, but obviously it's just gonna be mostly like, okay, how do I scale my damage? I just realized this isn't clicked, so you'd have to drop a point somewhere, probably. I don't know, maybe it's attack speed or something. Um, yeah, but it would it's be how do I scale my damage? Well, you've got this option, this option. This is just more damage. This is more damage. This is more damage. And then of course int for this, and then stuff like crit, right? You this is on crit. This makes it so that you're critting a lot. You're picking up all the flat crit nodes right here, here. Increase crit chance. Where you can, and yeah. So that's kind of how you're scaling it. And then you got a little bit of defense and health. Ideally, your gear is kind of pulling the weight on the defense, right? It's going to give you a lot more max life, res, all this kind of stuff. That the tree can't really solve for just yet. I mean, you got options. You could take a bunch of strength for life, or you know, grab a couple of res nodes if you wanted to. But yeah, that's about it. All right, I'm gonna go play the game. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a big. I don't enjoy playing as much as if I'm like training and stuff. So probably I don't know. Anyway, that's about it. Yep. Take care. Peace.